Today we have some breaking news. Cesaro has quit WWE. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in a moment. Also, Cody Rhodes leaving AEW has ultimately helped improve WWE Raw's ratings, so we will also talk about that. But first, we got to talk about something major. Brian Cage has re-signed with AEW despite the heavy rumors that his contracts would be one that would expire and not be re-signed. Fightful Select reported that Brian Cage did in fact have his contract option picked up by AEW. Despite the fact that AEW has yet to use him, Tony Khan obviously has some sort of plans for Brian Cage, which is pretty significant. Now, I have said time and time again that Brian Cage is somebody who could be really, really good for AEW, also could be really good for WWE, but there seems to be this huge disconnect with Brian Cage in AEW. So I don't really know exactly what plans AEW might have for him, but I do want to say first and foremost, good luck to Brian Cage. Hopefully he's actually being used for the next year because his option will pick him up for one more year. I do think AEW does have to use him at some point, but then it does obviously create this interesting conversation as to whether or not AEW does have a bloated roster who is not going to re-sign with the company. It's going to be very interesting, but ultimately interesting stuff from AEW, and I look forward to seeing what they do. All right, guys, WWE Raw actually had very significant ratings increase. They did about 1.8 million, a little bit more than that, on this past episode of Monday Night Raw, which is pretty significant considering that Raw had gotten decimated when they moved to Sci-Fi due to the Olympics. Now, the reason why I want to talk about this is largely due to the fact that there has been a lot of teases about Cody Rhodes going to WWE. So, is this proof that Cody Rhodes is significantly a draw? Is he a significant draw? Because I think there was a lot of people tuning into Raw with this idea that perhaps maybe Cody Rhodes would show up there. Also, what does that mean for WWE SmackDown, on the 25th of February? Will more people tune into SmackDown with this hope that maybe Cody Rhodes shows up? See, the thing is, with Cody Rhodes going to WWE, is WWE going to make a formal announcement, or are they just going to get this massive pop out of everybody? And I think if you're WWE, you actually have to advertise it. I think a lot of people would be willing to see what happens if you advertise it. And I liken to compare this similar to the AJ Styles thing, right? When AJ Styles showed up at the Royal Rumble, it wasn't necessarily a secret because WWE had released articles on WWE.com about AJ Styles and the Bullet Club being free agents. And at the time, there was talks of them coming to WWE. So just kind of keep that in mind. This is not something that's relatively new to WWE. I can see them very well doing the same thing with Cody Rhodes, which, by the way, when AJ Styles debuted in WWE's Royal Rumble, it was expected, but it was still a major surprise the way that they did it, the way they executed it. It was a very, very good debut. Do I think Cody Rhodes' return is something that's going to be comparatively similar to that? I think so. If I'm WWE, that is the route that I would go. Also, keep in mind, for WWE Raw's ratings to increase, imagine what it's going to be like, because honestly, the major consensus from you guys, the comments, and in the Discord server, a lot of you guys have spoken very highly of the last few episodes of Raw. So if WWE is getting people hooked in with this Cody Rhodes suspense, is there a chance that WWE continues to deliver these big stories that are actually bringing fans back to the product? And then what happens if they do in fact bring in Cody Rhodes? Does that actually help the company? So the thing is, I like what WWE is doing. I like what AEW is doing. I think all these companies are doing a great job. So like at the end of the day, I think this is really cool stuff for WWE bringing in Cody. I also think it's a good thing for AEW picking up the Brian Cage option, because it's like you don't necessarily know what to expect. 2022, we did not expect Cody Rhodes to leave AEW. We did not expect Brian Cage to get picked up and stay with AEW. So at the end of the day, the fact that literally anything can happen is kind of nice. It's not as predictable as we all make it out to be, and I think that's one of the reasons why I actually find myself enjoying WWE, and it's also one of the reasons why I find myself enjoying AEW as well. We think we know everything. We think everything is predictable, but sometimes they do things to shake things up. Yes, Brock Lesnar, Roman Reigns is predictable. Yes, certain things in AEW are also predictable, but MJF delivered an incredible promo that was not predictable whatsoever. So again, this idea that everything is predictable is not actually necessarily true, and I think every company is doing something really good, especially Impact, AEW, WWE. Those three specifically are entertaining me the most right now. One thing that's also not predictable is Cesaro quitting WWE. In fact, PW Insider has mentioned today, Mike Johnson came out with this report just moments ago. WWE star Cesaro has quietly exited WWE after his current contract expired. PWInsider.com has confirmed. We are told the two sides had been in negotiations, but had not come to terms on a new agreement. One source noted that WWE did offer Cesaro an extension on his current deal, but that was turned down. So there is no 90-day non-compete clause. Cesaro, 41 years old. He's been in WWE obviously for a while. It is going to be a long time. It's been a long time coming, I should say, in regards to Cesaro and his WWE situation, because WWE has had Cesaro for a while, and they put him in big situations, big stories here and there, but for the most part, he's never really been utilized, which is a sad thing. Cesaro has been absolutely incredible. And before everybody jumps on this whole, AEW should sign, before anybody says AEW should sign Cesaro, I think it's gotten to the point where AEW's roster is bloated, WWE's roster is bloated. Impact could use a couple key signings to help him out. I think Cesaro would be great for Impact. I think AEW would obviously benefit from having Cesaro too, but now you're bringing in Shane Strickland, you're bringing in a whole bunch of people. We don't know exactly who's leaving. Jeff Hardy's going to AEW. I mean, there's a lot of people going to AEW. I just feel like it gets really, really chaotic with so many people going there. I mean, shit, I would love to see Cesaro go to AEW, but at the same time too, I think the most logical thing would be Cesaro going to Impact. Now, keep in mind, Supercard of Honor is happening during WrestleMania week. Supercard of Honor could very well have Cesaro on there as well. Claudio Castagnoli, I think is how to pronounce his last name. He obviously has ties to ROH. He has ties to people in Impact. He has ties to people in AEW. Him leaving WWE sucks because I like Cesaro, but at the same time too, it just goes to show you, like, this is the result of not necessarily being a good booker. And WWE have said this time and time again, they could do good things here and there, but at the same time too, like, there are certain wrestlers we want to see, and you're not pushing them. You booked Cesaro versus Roman Reigns, which was phenomenal, but at the same time too, it was predictable because we knew that Roman Reigns was going to win. So I get why WWE does it. I see their strategy at hand, but that's the difference between being a pro wrestling company and a sports entertainment company. And I think that's why we need to have more options. And I think that's why it's so important that Impact and GCW and AEW and ROH and MLW and all these other companies, it's important that all those companies have some sort of ability to sign people. But yeah, Cesaro has quit WWE. Cody Rhodes could very well be on to WWE. Brian Cage is literally staying in AEW for another year. Like, none of this shit actually makes sense to me, guys, but it is what it is. I want to know what you guys think in the comment section down below. A little congested, I do apologize. But as always, I keep you updated. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below.